Battle Cry has forced a national spotlight on India's advanced drone program. Just why India, a country that has successfully developed fighter aircraft and helicopters, has simply failed to develop a drone of acceptable quality and performance. Battle Cry has forced a conversation where troubling questions are finally being asked. Is the Tapas failure really about technology or a failure of leadership? Is it really about performance or a total lack of accountability?
Not only does India not have enough advanced long-endurance drones to cover its vast areas of interest, but it doesn't operate a single advanced drone that's been developed in India. And now there's more troubling news. And it involves India's chief effort to develop the country's first long-endurance drone for the armed forces. The Tapas, a drone that has been in development and flight test for nearly 15 years now, has hit a roadblock, with reports emerging that the armed forces have shut their doors to the program. The reason? In extensive flight tests, the drone still has not managed to demonstrate an airborne endurance of over 24 hours at an altitude of 30,000 feet, falling short in both parameters. While reports of sudden disinterest by potential customers is troubling, experts believe that the writing was on the wall. The armed forces are said to have been unenthused by progress and unsatisfied with the drone's performance as a surveillance platform, despite the Tapas demonstrating several high-performance missions to prove its maturity. The Tapas drone project will continue to cruise, but with potential customers backing away, the fate of the program becomes a big question. And that's where a different Indian drone program flies into the picture. It's called the Archer NG, and it's still on the drawing board, with only brochure art and models emerging in the public domain. Sources reveal that the slightly smaller, single-engined Archer NG, modelled in some ways on the in-service Israeli Heron drone, is the homegrown drone that will finally meet the armed forces' requirements. Importantly, unlike the Tapas, the Archer NG is being developed from the ground ups as a weaponized drone, capable of firing precision munitions like the Predator Reaper family.
With the Tapas now stalled and a separate program called the Archer NG becoming the drone of focus, is India's drone program learning lessons or simply lurching from one crisis to the next? More importantly, can the armed forces afford another failure to deliver? Enter Ghatak, a futuristic Indian unmanned aircraft program. One that you've seen several times before right here on Battle Cry. The Ghatak, seen here being tested in miniaturized form, is intended as a fully stealth pilotless aircraft. Shaped unconventionally like a flying wing, crafted to be nearly invisible to radar and other ground sensors, allowing it to penetrate hostile airspace, conduct precision remote-controlled airstrikes, and return undetected or at least untouched. Unlike the Tapas, the Ghatak isn't a mission mode program, which means it isn't time-bound and isn't being developed to achieve a specific current military mission or objective. Also, the Ghatak is not yet a sanctioned government program, since it is still a long way to its intended operational reality. But that doesn't mean it isn't a crucial project that the Indian military doesn't have its eyes on. And it doesn't mean that its makers have a blank check when it comes to time and money. And it certainly doesn't mean that the project has the luxury of being unduly tinkered with. But that is precisely what appears to be happening. And it isn't Battle Cry saying it, but a former project director of the Gatak program itself. Battlecry has learned that a few years ago, the Defence Research and Development Organisation, or DRDO, proposed that the Ghatak project be shifted to one of its own laboratories from the Aeronautical Development Agency, an autonomous consortium of agencies that developed the Tejas fighter and is developing India's future piloted combat aircraft as well. Despite the agency's resistance and the Indian Air Force's warnings against any such tinkering, the Ghatak program was shifted to an aeronautical laboratory under the DRDO, with at least one Indian Air Force estimate suggesting that this move would set the program back by 5 years. On its part, the DRDO could well argue that shifting the Ghatak program to a different laboratory is to optimize development, allowing the original agency to focus on manned or piloted aircraft, while the new home of the Ghatak focuses strictly on unmanned drone programs, including the Tapas. Some would say that those speaking out are merely disgruntled over narrow turf battles and unhealthy inter-laboratory rivalries. But there are those who believe it is precisely this sort of random, midstream tinkering that harms programs, leaving room for accountability holes, lack of continuity, failure to deliver, competing interests, and individual egos and turf wars, all afflictions that have harmed a multiplicity of military programs in the past. With the failure of the Tapas to enthuse the military, so much so that they firmly closed the door on the project, does the future-focused Ghatak become something of a test case? Because even if the Ghatak isn't mission mode or time-bound, its intended missions, that is airstrikes on enemy territory, are hardly beyond the realm of reality. It was only 5 years ago, remember, that the Indian Air Force conducted piloted fighter strikes on Pakistan's Balakot. Will a crucial, futuristic drone program also fall hostage to organizational failures? Or will the Ghatak have a very different flight path and lease of life?